My name is Nemanja and today we are talking about Feign Client. APIs, Application Programming Interface. It's a way for one program to communicate and exchange information with another program. That is usually accomplished using RestTemplate library or some different kind of libraries like OK HTTP library or something else. But quite honestly to say, all of them are a little bit too complicated or they add a little bit too much overhead. So there must be a better way, an easier way to accomplish communication with REST endpoint, and there is, and it's called Feign Client library. Feign Client library gives us the possibility to define interface, and inside of it, with a couple of annotations, we define a method which will consume a specific REST endpoint. So let's deep dive into a code and see how we can accomplish this. Here I have made simple interface to define Feign Client. Feign Client is defined using @annotation Feign Client, where I specify the URL of API. And then inside of this interface, I define methods with annotation @getMapping, meaning that this is get endpoint inside of this API with following parameters. Here I have passed producers, but there are also other parameters that you can pass in here, like this method I have passed the path variable ID. There is also possibility to pass headers or consumes as well. Also, I will show later that there is possible to define specific configuration for this. Feign client. So I have defined three methods: one to retrieve all the list of to-dos, second method to retrieve specific to-do by ID, and the third method is a post method that will create that to-do. So that's basically it regarding one simple creation of Feign client and how we can only by using annotations specify URL of that API and also get or post mapping or put. I haven't defined put, but we can do that as well. So let's see that in action. So I have defined Feign controller, which uses to do Feign client. So it uses this defined interface. We have provided @autowired annotation, and then I have made one for each method in to do in Feign client. I have defined one endpoint in my API, which only calls that Feign client method. So for each, for getting list of to-dos, for individual to-do, and for creating a to-do. So let's test all of them. So let's first retrieve all to-dos. And as you can see, we have retrieved all the to-dos. So it basically contacts the JSON placeholder.typicode.com API. So my controller using Feign client retrieves information from this API. So let's go to retrieve one specific to-do, and as you can see, we have retrieved that. And let's create also one to-do, and I have got the 201 created status point. So there is a little bit specific regarding post mapping that I have made in my Feign client. So as you can see, I have used a response class of Feign library as a response for this method. In a previous cases, I have used built-in mapping. So Feign client has mapped a response from this API, from this endpoint to my to-do class. That's the class that I have defined here. Actually, it's a record. And for post mapping, I wanted to show how we can manually map and define our specific response status code. So I needed to use a response class from Feign client, see package Feign, and then here where I have consumed that method, we should use try with resources here because response has input stream inside of it. So it needs to be closed afterwards. So we check if the response status is 200 or 201. It means that the object has been created, and then we do manual mapping of the body of the response to our class, and then we return our response entity with that specific status code. Otherwise, if it is not created, or better to say, if the status code is not 200 or 201, then we return that status, but wrapped inside of response entity, so that our endpoint returns response entity. As you can see, we haven't done any configuration. Nothing is necessary in order for Feign Client to work. So we got a lot of things out of the box. So very easy, very intuitive. But what happens if we want to set up some things? We want to add some additional configuration, to change something, to change the default behavior of Feign Client. So we can do that by defining custom configuration file and then specifying in at Feign Client configuration parameter, and we say, okay, set up this Feign Client based on this custom Feign Client configuration. And as you can see, I have defined a couple of things here. So for example, I have defined request options, where I have defined connection timeout to be timed out after 3 seconds, read timeout also to be after 3 seconds to follow redirect to true. Also, if we want to add logging to the Feign Client, we need to also specify specific bean, where we define which level of logging do we want. We have none for no logging, basic, headers, full logging. Also, we can define custom retryer to say, okay, what happens if the request fails? How many times do we want to attempt it? Do we want to wait a couple of seconds before retry? And we all specify it in our custom retryer. We can actually use inline retryer. So it means that we don't need to specify custom class for it, but we can, inside of this method, define, okay, our new retryer will have retry up to 3 times with 100 milliseconds delay with 1 second of maximal delay. So we don't need to define completely new class for it, but if we want, we can do that, as I have previously shown. Also, it's highly advisable to define clone method here, because the clone method will create new custom retryer for each new established connection, because Feign Client is a thread safe and may be used concurrently. So if the same retryer instance would be used for every request, internal states like maximum attempts would be shared across the calls, and then it will lose point of it and the functionality of it. So besides that, we can also define custom error decoder, so how to behave depending on specific HTTP status code which is received from the calling API. So I have defined here, like, if we retrieve 404 HTTP status code, then to throw some runtime exception with a specific message, otherwise to generate some other runtime exception with specific message. And we can also define request interceptor to intercept each request that is sent to the consuming API, and to add some specific header to it. So let's see that in action. So we will rerun the solution, and we will see how the custom header has been added to each request. So if we open the Postman, and then we will send a request to it, and you will see in logs that a custom header has been added. So if we execute this, you will see, first of all, you will see the logger. Logger has been added. And here it marks beginning of the GET request with our custom header that we have added in the interceptor. It's just some dummy request header added to it. Also, as I have said, in order to see logs, you need to enable to define a logger bin for it, and also you need to specify in application.properties these two properties so that the logs will be enabled. Here is the package in which my Feign client has been defined. So you need to keep that in mind. Okay. Besides individual configuration that we need to define for each Feign client, so let's say we want to define another interface for another Feign client, we would also need to specify a configuration in order for this custom Feign client configuration to be applied. So there is possibility to define overall Feign client configuration, so to be applied on all Feign client interfaces. So how we can do that? We remove it from here, and then just in custom Feign client we define add configuration. That will say that the custom Feign client configuration class will be used as a configuration for all Feign client interfaces. Another way of specifying configuration for Feign client is possible in application.properties, where we can define custom timeout, read timeout, logger level as well, but we cannot define custom retry, custom error decoder, or request intercept. So in this video, we have explored how to use Feign client in Spring Boot applications to establish communication with external APIs. You have learned how easy it is to write clean and reusable HTTP client with just a few annotations. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more videos from topics of Java, Spring, and software development. Also, don't forget to leave the comment in the section below, where you would suggest which other topic should I cover in one of my next videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.